Now, we are moving on to our next session. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Syed Zafiruddin sir, currently excelling as a Global Vigilance Manager at Julpar Pharma, UAE. Sir is an experienced pharmacovigilance manager and skilled at good clinical practice, pharmacovigilance, management of ICSR, handling regulatory queries regarding safety concerns. He has been a speaker for World Drug Safety Congress in Europe and America since 2018. Now, Sir will be enlightening us on the topic Causality Assessment by DX3 Scale. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon, all. I hope you guys can view my screen. Uh,
Sir, you're
Anybody can
audible
come?
and your screen is visible.
Okay, thank you. My name is Syed Zafiruddin, and I am from India. But uh, since the last decade, I am in Middle East. I have uh, my entire experience in pharmacovigilance only. But considering the current conference, I guess there are people who are from clinical trial background mainly. So it will be a challenging for me to talk about the clinical trial aspects, but I will try my best to keep the topic oriented. Um, my current topic is to inform you about the DX3 approach for assessing the causality with a small data set. So, you see, as Dr. Piyush Mishra already talked to you about the ICSRs, whether it's a clinical trial setup or post-market setup, the ICSRs, individual case safety reports, are the most important blocks of entire safety system for the drugs. And to achieve this, each ICSR must be processed with in a very scientific and careful way. So the moment you receive the ICSRs, this individual case, these adverse drug events or adverse drug reaction reports from various sources, whether it is clinical trial or post-marketing or literature, there are n number of sources through which you can receive such information. After receiving this information, you need to process these cases on a safety database. There are multiple safety databases available on the market like Argus, RSG, ABCube, and number of software databases are there. So while processing this information, you need to come to a very important aspect of this exercise, that is causality assessment, where you need to really think
Excuse
and
me, sir.
okay. So I was just telling you regarding the causality part of that ICSR. So you need to establish a causal relationship between reported adverse event or drug reaction with the drug. In nutshell, you need to define that whether given adverse reaction or event is caused by this given drug or not. So this causal association determination step is very important in drug safety science, whether it comes for the clinical trial phase or post-market phase in both situations. So my present topic will be revolving around uh, there is a new approach because there were some old methods through which we were assessing this relationship, but we have come up with a very new approach, and this approach is still under discussion. It is not implemented yet, but considering its potential, it might be implemented in the industries um, in near future. So I will be just discussing about this approach. So this presentation is powered by Yashvin Consultancy Services. This is a UAE-based company who is providing pharmacovigilance, training, auditing, safety database kind of services. This will be my different topics for which I will be letting you guys. Okay, so if you see, there was a philosopher in 17th century with the name David Hume, and Hume's theory of regularity was very popular. As per this theory, Hume was mainly talking about the causal association of different things. So his concern was that if there is no multiple regularity in single event, it means that there is no cause. I repeat, if there is no multiple regularity in single event, it means there is no cause. So in order to establish a causal association, what David Hume was to say that same event should occur multiple times in a regular way, in a regular fashion. If such thing occurs, then only you can tell this particular thing has caused this particular event. But if you see, since we have developed our rational approach, and if you see that the theory suggested by David Hume has a very imprecise ideology behind, and with this way we cannot uh, justify the causal association of multiple things. So the existing scales which are being used on industry or with the regulators, like Naranjo's scale, you might be aware of that, because I don't know the type of audience, whether they are from industry background or academia. So I'm getting confused how to approach the audience now. Uh, can anybody just confirm the what is the audience type? Are they from industry or they from academia or uh, Dr. Shadar, can you just confirm me the type of audience here? Hello, anybody there? Okay, it's saying clinician mixed audience. Okay, thank you for this confirmation. Uh, okay. Okay, so there were some other skills which are been already used by industry and regulators, like Naranjo's scale for causality assessment, WHO EMC scale for causality assessment, and but this different scales has the David Hume's approach. It's an empiricist scale, and that's why most of the industry people are having issues in identifying the causality, and it is not giving proper results. If somebody from industry is here, they can easily understand my pain, where if you process many ICSRs on safety database using Naranjo's scale, so mostly you will come up with the result as possible relationship. So with this possible relationship as an outcome, you cannot, take any action with the drug, and this requires n number of reports, and again you need to have very big data set. Then only there will be uh, some way to evaluate. But if you have very small data set, low number of ICSRs, and if you are still using this scale, so this scale will not yield any positive result. So that is why there is a team from WHO, which comprises of Dr. Elena Rocco and Dr. Rebecca Chandler and Anjum Lil. These three scholars came up with the new scale, and I am a part of this committee, where we have formed this committee, and we are further discussing the implementation of this scale uh, practically. So this scale basically work for a small data set. This is a limitation of this scale. But in practical, when we see, there are thousands of companies who are having very small data set, a small number of ICS are being reported. There are only very few companies who has a very global approach, and they have a very huge data set. But generic companies and other small companies, they don't have that large number of ICSRs. So this skill is quite good fit for them, where it has a qualitative approach for its evaluation. Uh, in this scale, we will evaluate the given drug and adverse events causal association using three methods. Number one is drug disposition, number two is patient vulnerability, and number three is mutuality. Drug disposition is nothing but historical evidence of the drug reaction. Whatever evidence on a historical basis you can find out about the drug. Patient vulnerability is nothing but the historical details of the patient, that how patient has behaved historically, those information. Mutuality is nothing but drug and patient interaction. So the idea of this skill, it revolves around that keeping patient in center while assessing the drug and event causal association. The scales like Naranjo's and WHO UMC and other scale of assessment, what they were doing, they were keeping drug in the center, and they were checking drugs effect on the other factors. But while this scale will keep the patient in the center and will check what happened to this patient, why happened to this patient. So this is very idealistic approach again. So being a patient centric scale, this will yield more better results than um, scales like Naranjo and UMC and other scales. Um, since it's a patient centric scale, that's why it requires more information. Like, the good part of Naranjo's scale and other scales was that even if you have less information, low data set, you can easily assess, because it has question and answer method, and with the help of that scale, it is very easy to assess. But this scale, since it's a patient centric scale, we are keeping patient in the center, so you need to have more information. So that is the reason why this scale will be applicable for healthy cases, where you have more and more data about the adverse drug reaction, more and more information about the patient itself. So this scales gives you result on three grounds. Number one, it will tell you whether given adverse drug reaction and drug has a strong causal association, or it has a good causal association, or it has a moderate causal association. So there will be three outcomes of this scale. For example, if you know that given drug, you know the mechanism of adverse drug reaction, that is mechanistic knowledge of drug reaction alone or with another drug. If you have this information about the drug and this reaction, it means that you have a strong association. For the same drug reaction and drug, you have no mechanistic knowledge, but you have a statistical evidence available of correlation of drug and ADR. So it means that it has a good causal association. If you have an apparent correlation of drug and ADR without scientific evidence, if you coming up with this knowledge about the drug and event pair, so it means that the association will be a moderate level association. While coming towards the patient's vulnerability, historical details of the patient. If you found a drug reaction and the drug where patient has a history of showing this adverse drug reaction whenever this drug is given, so it means that it has a strong association. It has a strong causal association. If patient who has suffered from the given adverse event belongs to the same group of patients who shows adverse reaction, it means that it has a good causal association. If a patient belongs to the subgroup that have adverse drug reaction but not scientifically proved, it means that it has moderate causal association. Now coming towards third parameter, which is mutuality. So if we have evidence of plausible to adverse drug reaction, so in that case, it will be a strong association. If you have information on possible de-challenge and re-challenge, so it means that it will be yielding a good causal association. So similar reaction of such medicines on the similar demographic population, if you are coming up with this information on a given drug event pair, so it means that it has moderate causal association. Now we will go, I know it's confusing now for few of you, so we'll go to an example here, and through this example we need to understand that how the given scale we can apply and see that what outcome it can produce. Because there are many drugs which like for cancer medicine and other important drugs where we have very low reporting case, where we cannot get much more adverse drug reactions and we need to take some concrete decision. So such scale will be of very use. So I will show you one classical example here where giving a single case we can conclude our action on the drug. That is the beauty of this scale. Uh, just let me know if you can see it. Can you read this now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have a case here, an elderly patient affected by chronic myeloid leukemia was treated with nilotinib 800 milligram daily. After an unspecified period of time, the patient developed abdominal pain and increase of hepatic enzymes. Abdominal ultrasonography and endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography were consistent with the diagnosis of Aculus cholecystitis. Nilotinib treatment was stopped and two subsequent attempts to restart it were complicated by a return of events. Each time the nilotinib was discontinued, the patient recovered, constituting two positive re-challenge. After the final treatment episode, a calculus, cholecystitis, and abdominal pain were reported as completely recovered. The reporter of the case did not believe there was causal relationship between nilotinib and cholecystitis without further explanation. So from if I apply a Naranjo's scale to the given case, I will get a result as the given event and drug nilotinib has a probable association for this occurrence. So causality will be a probable. So with this single assessment, I cannot take any decision with the drug. And since the reporter, who is the HCP, the healthcare provider or professional, has clearly stated that he or she did not believe in any causal relationship between drug and the event, so which makes this case more uh, inclined towards non-causal association. But if you apply the DX3 scale for the same case with the same information, you will be amazed with the result. So this is the beauty of this scale. So if I say that from drug disposition point of view, drug disposition was nothing but historical data about the drug, which cause so if we have some mechanism which suggests that this adverse reaction was caused by nilotinib, so it means that association will be strong because it has mechanistic approach. We have mechanistic knowledge for given adverse drug reaction and the drug. So after reading the literature about the drug, we come to conclude that there is a evidence for a plausible mechanism by which nilotinib can induce the symptoms here described. A number of findings related to the hepatobiliary toxicity were made following repeated administration of nilotinib. Liver weight increases were observed in rats. So all this information, which we collected after reading the drugs literature, so we concluded that there is a possible mechanism through which this drug can cause this adverse drug reaction. So it means that we have a strong causal association when it comes to drug disposition parameter. Coming towards the patient's vulnerability, whether the patient is vulnerable to get such kind of adverse drug reaction. So when we examine the patient's data, we come to conclude that although the patient was not reported to be experienced with this event before the administration of nilotinib, aculous cholecystitis is most commonly observed in the setting of very ill patient. So even though we don't have any data about the patient who has this history of experience of this adverse event with the drug, but this patient belongs to same group of patient who shows adverse reaction. So it means that we can conclude that there is a good causal association under the patient vulnerability parameter. Third is mutuality. The repeated D-challenges and re-challenge indicate that nilotinib was difference maker. So if D-challenge and re-challenge information we have, it means that it has good association. So we are getting this mechanistic knowledge, we are getting this information. So we are getting two goods and one strong from given three parameter. So on the basis of this, we can conclude there is a good evidence of vulnerability of patient to a calculus cholecystitis. So with this available information, we can give our overall assessment as since both evidence of drug disposition and anxiety are strong, the fact that there is a good evidence of patient predisposition to cholecystitis should not be automatically be used to weaken the causal hypothesis of the in the case. Evidence of the causality is strong and the case warrants further investigation of the possibility that other patients with leukemia or similar condition might be vulnerable to nilotinib induced cholecystitis. So with the single case, we can conclude this very important information. So this is the beauty of this scale. So if I had applied the Naranjo's scale to the given case, so I can conclude that there is a reasonable temporal sequence after the drug followed a recognized response to the suspect drug was confirmed by its withdrawal. So there is a probable relationship between adverse event and drug with the score of 6. So that will be a probable association. And with this information, after the application of Naranjo, I cannot take any decision. I have to wait for more and more cases, and I need to collect bigger number of cases to take a further. Because even with this score, if I have a single case, it will not qualify for the signal management stages for the pharmacovigilance. So if I compare the DX3 with Naranjo scale, I can conclude that Naranjo scale is a questionnaire-based approach with 10 questions, while DX3 is a qualitative approach based on three major areas like the disposition, patient vulnerability, and mutuality. So I can conclude that DX3 requires more time to implement as compared to Naranjo scale. So there is no doubt because Naranjo scale is very easy to operate. Questions are there. Even there are some calculators for available online for this scale. So within no time, you can conclude something using Naranjo. But for the X3 assessment, you need to put more time, more efforts to collect the data on background and conclude something. So no doubt this is a challenging task, but since I was reading the uh, program agenda for this beautiful conference or webinar, so I come to know that there are some topics given by Dr. Shadek and other people on artificial intelligence and some other aspects. So which are like ChatGPT, I guess Dr. Shadek is going to talk by tomorrow. So which concludes that artificial intelligence is capable to overtake the other unnecessary repetitive work. That's the beauty of artificial intelligence. So even if some machines, some databases, some softwares are taking your job, which can be done by them easily, so we as a human being, we can focus more on the medical aspect, the clinical aspect of the cases. Because when I see in the industry, most of the people, they are doing some administrative work while performing the ICSR processing. The majority of their task will be of performing the data entry, performing the quality checks, while they will be spending very few time or very less time with the clinical aspect, discussing the causality, discussing. So we as a qualified HCPs, qualified clinicians or pharmacologists or pharmacists, if we adopt this approach, we makes ourselves more oriented toward this aspect of the case processing. So it will be giving us more valuable outputs, which we are expecting from this drug safety science. If I see the Naranjo scale, so it gives you results in doubtful, possible, probable, definite in this way. While this approach will give you strong, moderate, or good in this way. So if 2 out of 3 areas are good or strong, then it is considered as strong. Otherwise, case will be weak. So in a remarks, I could say that Naranjo scale provides the quantitative approach while DX3 provides the qualitative approach. Naranjo scale provides a score without providing any specific area of risk. However, DX3 provides an area of risk in terms of drug patient or drug patient relationship. If I say a Naranjo scale focuses on specific ICSR details without much emphasis on the similar drug or patient historical relationship with the adverse drug reaction, while a DX3 assessment will tell you focus on specific ICSR and also study the similar drugs and patients correlation data from different historical databases for specific adverse drug reaction. So in remarks, I can say that DX3 provides a detailed qualitative analysis of such cases where there is a limited information available for a single ICSR. Naranjo scale might provide a doubtful or possible outcomes, whereas the DX3 can provide a serious issue and starting point to be studied further. So this is the major comparison between these two scales. So obviously this scale has a different approach where we are keeping patient in center. So obviously it will come with the challenges which I already discussed with you guys. So to avoid that challenges, as of now this scale is under assessment, under investigation by this panel, where myself, even Dr. Shadir is involved with WHO team. We are working with WHO team very hard now. We have formed a very big committee, under this committee we are discussing and applying this scale for small data sets and checking the results against the Naranjo and WHO scales. So this work is on progress now, as of now, and as of till now the results are very positive, and um, even there are two regulators from Kuwait and UAE and other Middle East part. They agreed to study this scale and try to implement uh, in their country. So that's a very positive feedback which we are getting from even from the regulators. So I guess um, this is what we can recommend, that if you have a small data set and you want to go for qualitative assessment, so as of now even generic industries can adopt this skills for the assessment. I guess that's it from my end. Thank you guys, thanks for listening patiently. If you have any question, doubt, please let me know.
Thank you, sir, for such an engaging presentation. And sir, we have a question from our delegates. Let me ask, sir, the question of what are the job opportunity from for MD pharmacology in vigilance sector in India and outside India? Over to you, sir.
Uh, Yes, in India, I cannot answer because it's been more than a decade for me when I left the country. But in I have experience with UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Bahrain, where for post marketing things there are potential chances to get recruited. um, so for pharmacovigilance, you will find the vacancies with the more vacancies will be with the distributors, because in these countries there are very few manufacturers. So mostly the country runs on distributors, where distributor will be the focal point with the regulator, and they will take the drug products from outside and they will distribute internally. So big companies, they need to have a scientific office here if they're not manufacturing, but they need to have a scientific office, and as per the scientific office requirement they need to run a small pharmacovigilance setup at national level. But the issue is that as per the vision 2030 of given by the uh, Saudi Arabia, they want all the pharmacovigilance to be taken care by local citizens, the nationals, the Saudi peoples. So in Saudi Arabia, this rule is already implemented. No outsiders or expatriates is allowed to be registered as QPPV. We are calling it as QPPV, qualified person for the pharmacovigilance. But if any company is employing more than one human resources for pharmacovigilance, so one can be a Saudi, but while other person can be non-Saudi. So here you go and you can have chances to apply if there is a vacancy for deputy QPPV or pharmacovigilance manager or pharmacovigilance officer. So this is about Saudi Arabia. Same follows in Oman. In Oman also, you need to be a Omani national to be hired in pharmacovigilance. In UAE, there is no such requirement. Anybody who is a resident of UAE can be registered as qualified person for the pharmacovigilance and they can serve. So you will find vacancies in with the distributors mainly. Then you have scientific offices, scientific office for like for Roche, Novartis, and other MNCs. Then Roche is also having one uh, cluster office, the hub, regional hub here, global hub here. So they have multiple vacancies. Then you have some generic pharma manufacturing companies. There are very few in number, but there are some generic manufacturing pharma where they need more than 3 to 4 people to work in pharmacovigilance. So pharmacovigilance concept in this region is still is under its nascency, but the good thing is that there are good legislation, good guidelines which is backing pharmacovigilance as a concept, and Saudi FDA is has adopted a very good approach. Even they are inspecting because there are many companies will not start pharmacovigilance unless and until they have some inspections conducted by the regulators. So since Saudi FD is very active now, they are conducting the inspections, giving the fines, penalties to the companies. So that is the why demand for pharmacovigilance, especially in Saudi Arabia, has increased to a great extent. But same is not done in countries like UAE, Oman, Bahrain, and Qatar. So still, there is some time to get more attentions from the regulators in this region. Okay,
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and your thoughtful presentation.
you're welcome.
And now, uh, due to short of time, just please keep posting your queries, which will be answered in the group later. Thank you, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you. Bye bye. Thank you
Moving on
all.
to moving on to the